In general, just how do you explain what a UX designer does?
What do I do? Hi, Johnny. Welcome to the Risa Pizza channel.
Hi, yeah, great to be here.
Johnny and I met through ADPList, and in this call, we would love to talk about design and PM partnerships, how we can strengthen that. Before we get started, tell us who you are.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Johnny, and I'm currently working as a product management associate, health tech startup in Toronto, and we're a SaaS company. So my first question was actually, what are some healthy habits that I should be looking to build with designers at the company that I'm at right now?
Healthy habit to build is first starting with the one-on-one, especially if you are new to the company and you're still building that trust with your partner. Make sure you have those one-on-one sessions. And in those sessions, I recommend talking about what went well that week and what didn't go so well that week. So that will instantly set the tone of the meeting and help you to be more transparent and honest with each other. Sometimes it's really difficult to give candid feedback, but what really helps is to start off with you asking for a feedback. For example, hey, we've been working as a PM and designer in the past 3 months. Was there anything I could have done better or that really bothered you?
So honesty is a really big part of it, just being really honest with your communication and not sugarcoating things, I guess.
Yes, and there's other habits and rituals you could do, such as retro. Do you do that at your company?
Not much right now. We're one of those really fast startups where like everything's kind of a little on fire at all times. So I think we're trying to implement things like that. So I'd love to get insight on the things you do at your company to improve things.
I recommend suggesting a retro at least every launch and involve the backend engineer, the front-end engineer, the PM designer, all of them. And there's a lot of tools that will help you do that. So just pick one. Most of them are similar.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. Thank you so much. Do you ever have issues explaining your job? And in general, just how do you explain what a UX designer does and what you do when it comes to product?
What do I do?
I know it's a big question.
So my answer to that question would be, I do whatever the company needs in that moment. So this is probably not an answer to what does product designer do, but for me, I try to define the gap in the team or the product. When I joined Mothership, we didn't have a PM. So I quickly noticed the gap of what was happening with the lack of PM, which was miscommunication between different departments. So the first thing I did was to introduce a triad structure and announce it to the team. I presented the triad structure in front of the CEO and all the stakeholders and walked through why it's important to define the ownerships and responsibility. So in that presentation, the way I explained product designer versus PM was the product manager's responsibility is to align the team, right? Why are we building this feature? Why is it important? And how do we get there? And then where the designers come in is we help them define the vision and the possible solutions. And then the most important thing is to be the voice of the users. I think there's a huge overlap between PMs and designers. In the ideal world, we don't distinguish the two too much because every person differs in terms of their strength and their expertise. Someone like me, I could do a little bit of PM too. So even till this day, sometimes I write a feature brief. Sometimes I come up with a timeline when the PMs is busy with other higher priority tasks. And vice versa, the PM that I work with now talk to the drivers every day. And so he's doing some of the user interview portion too. So in summary, there are job descriptions for PMs and design, but really both of them should be pretty flexible and help identify the gap and fill in and do whatever it takes to make that product and the team successful.
Yeah, it seems like no two product managers are the same. No two designers are really the same. It's always a little different based on priorities. How do you deal with issues, because we've had this recently, where a single feature or a potential feature development has two entirely separate opinions from separate users. So one person thinks it's useful, one person thinks it's super like low priority. How do you try to resolve that?
Could you give me some examples?
Yeah, sure. So for instance, we were doing some user testing and we were asking about whether offline functionality is useful for the app. And some users said that they don't care at all about that. They only use it like news internet, while others say it's the most important thing for them because it's a health app. And for instance, for one person with ADHD, he doesn't know when the urge to use the app might come up. So randomly, whenever he wants to use it, he might be a little bit annoyed because there's no way to use it offline. So we're trying to determine how high priority offline mode is. And it's a little tough because we have very separate scales of opinions for this.
What's the product vision?
That's the thing, right? It's sort of like a personal health app. So
Okay.
a lot of people use it to track the medications like that. The thing is, most of them just track it at home. So morning, evening, etc. So this is kind of like a side case. But on the other hand, we've had even like visual updates. So for example, some people say like keep it as simple as possible. Others wish there was more customization. So it's tough. It's become kind of an issue between older users versus younger users. So younger users who are more tech savvy, who just want to change everything. And we're kind of at a crossroads between, do we focus more on simplicity, helping older customers, or do we try to make it more fun and techy?
I had a similar challenge when I worked for Yahoo Japan because our demographic was similar. We had majority older folks, but we were actually trying to get younger folks because, we need to keep growing. I honestly don't have a great answer to this, but my gut tells me to ship it incrementally and observe how the user react to them. So you mentioned about customization. What is the customization that could benefit both of the folks? And how can you educate those elderly users? So I think it goes back to the prioritization, right? Lay out all the items that are on the roadmap. Think of the impact and how that specific initiative helps to scale the product.
Really like long-term vision and then determining like which items are not. Interesting. Okay. You're kind of like the in-between stage between product management, who's kind of like developing like ideas, and engineering who's implemented them. Do you ever have do you feel like you have a role as like sort of mediator between the two? That you're trying to like make things realistic for engineering while also fulfilling product management's desires?
Yeah, definitely. I see designers as a bridge between the different stakeholders, not just business and engineering, but also, legal team, operation team, support team, marketing team. We try to really, first and foremost, understand the impact to the business. As a designer, that's the first thing we do. We help the product managers define the goal and the impact of that initiative. And then we also do some user research, talk to the other stakeholders, the engineering team, and really understand where we want to get to and also where we are right now. And then we, as a team, as a triad, we talk about how we can get to the North Star.
How do you go about getting user feedback, especially in terms of design?
Yeah, it depends on the phases. So when we worked on the redesign for the mobile app for the truck drivers, in the discovery phase, interviewed with the actual users face to face. And we developed that trust there. And then once we were at a stage where we had a design, I brought them back into the process and I asked them if they could give us feedback. We handed the phone to them with the Figma prototype. And that's how we received feedback on the usability part. We also utilize tools like usertesting.com. This is a way to do unmoderated test. And how it works is that we just define the test script and we send out the link. And then in a matter of 3 and 4 hours, you receive some video recorded feedback. So that's been super cool for us to use.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And honestly, the issue with our company as well is a lot we're trying to do is we're trying to really get the user more involved than they currently are. So anything that like helps us easily get user feedback, like actual feedback from real people who are outside the company, is super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and then a cool thing we started doing is since we launched our new full-on redesigned mobile app, we had about 20 users using our beta on their phone. And how we collected feedback was because they're truck drivers, right? We need to make sure we're not disturbing their work. We would text them when they're about to be done with their day and see if they're available to talk on the phone. So depending on who your users are, you can be a little bit strategic and flexible in terms of how to receive feedback.
What do you do if there's some sort of feedback that you think isn't very useful, and then somebody else who maybe isn't as good with visual design tries to, I suppose, do your job for you?
I have those situations happen all the time. Those usually happen in meetings, right? When you're presenting a design solution, you get feedback from, for example, marketing team or the engineering team. And sometimes those feedback can be very descriptive, like change this button position to this and stuff like that. So when I detect that, I try to ask the why and the intention behind it. And I try to align what their goals are. To give you an example, there was a time when I was speaking to the marketing person, right? And they brought up a concern about one of the design component. So I tried to understand what their concerns are. And I would say, hey, what's your concern about this current design? And then they will say, I want to make sure that we are making minimum components. And I started to understand, oh, I see. So you were concerned about the engineering resources. Don't worry about that. The product and design, we got that. We will communicate to the engineer why we need to create a new component for this. So try to define the concerns they have, why they're suggesting an alternative design, and try to get on the same page. I always try to remind myself that we are aiming for the same goal. And I think it's a bad move if I say something like, well, we're going to do this because I'm the decision maker and the expert of design.
I'm angry, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really cool though, that story. I think it really does help, just knowing that at the end of the day, you gotta just aim for the same goal, just talk to each other. Communication is important. Do you ever have issues where the amount of features that they're trying to make you develop in a short amount of time is way too much?
Yeah, I get that all the time. And it's because I think design role is not super clear for other people. So oftentimes I get requests from other departments like, oh, can you help me update this landing page? Or can you help me edit this video? What has really helped recently is the support from the product manager. So we use Asana as a task management tool. And every task essentially is logged in Asana as a ticket. So we are constantly juggling through 40 different tickets, but it's always prioritized. We align with the PM on Monday. So we look at the list, we prioritize the list, we add the deadline. So that helps me push back on some of the requests because anybody can see the designer board and see how much work and what the priority is.
And I'm guessing you discuss with the product manager how to prioritize things, or is it more just on them to prioritize for you?
Yeah, it's a collaborative process. Sometimes we would have disagreements. For example, there was a time when I thought error handling is a high priority task because if the error is not clearly communicated in the product, the user can get stuck and they could call this customer support to solve that issue. But the PM was aware of other even more critical bugs. So he ended up pushing me back saying, hey, we understand that error handling is important, but people are having trouble logging in, for example. And that is more obviously higher priority.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear, actually. So it seems like even if you have disagreements, it's kind of just about determining which user feedback is most important and what I have to do first. Thank you so much for the advice. I'm going to have to listen back to it sometime later.
Please check out the ADPList if you are looking for a mentorship session with me. Also, please hit the like button if you are interested in seeing more interview sessions like this. And don't forget to subscribe to Risa Pizza. Have a great day!